Right, so guys, please confirm if you can see my screen. Gopal, is Vaishali joining, or shall we go ahead with the class? One second. All right, so yeah, Rashid, sample databases are adventure words, and Northwind and pubs. There are so many databases that you can Google and you can download them. They are free of cost. So these will serve the purpose of the sample data, and you can create a small project kind of scenario based on these things, and you can practice on the tool. But let me explain like how this project goes on. So this is more of a theory part that we'll be looking at today. The story, how it goes, and how the project gets initiated, and how it will go up to the go live phase. Okay. So now the companies will identify the clients who might need a data migration. Okay. One second. All right. Sorry. The companies will identify the clients who might need a data migration, and what these companies will do is they will try to approach them either through a cold call or through direct sales representatives. So either ways they will be explaining the clients what they might be doing or what might be able to do. So if it is directly through SAP, SAP will give us a lead saying that okay, this client of ours is looking out for a data migration. So better go and check out like if he is interested in doing a data services on top of his SAP system. So we might get a lead from SAP or through a cold call or through a sales representative where they will go and initiate the sales process. So they will take the PPT that which we have seen in our demonstration, the same PPT, and they will go and start the demonstration. Like they will tell the benefits of the data services tool. They will try to identify what are the different types of data that the client has. Again, they will try to identify what are the different sorts of data, the volume of the data, and all those things. And they will give a demo presentation saying that this is how we can transfer your data with so many cross-checks, and we can ensure that good data is there in the target system. So they do all these kinds of cross-checks, and they will come up to the company, I mean to the developers or to the managers, saying up to the company who is going to develop or from whom they are doing this, for whom they are doing the sales presentation. They'll come up to the company with some statistics saying that this is the client, this sort of data he has, he is into this business, and he wants the data migration to be done on him. So after the sales call, the second step that will happen is a POC or a pilot project. Okay, so the second one is the POC or a pilot project, which is called the proof of concept or the pilot project. So generally the developers below 5 years will never be involved in all these phases. I'm just letting you know so that you'll have an idea like how it goes and all these things. So it should be useful for you. So POC or the pilot projects will done. So what we'll do in this POC? We take the sample data from the client in the form of a notepad or in the form of an Excel file or in the form of a database table. We do a sample migration for them saying that this is how your data is, and this is how your data will be migrated into the target system based on these scenarios and these rules. So we will create an actual migration project, but on a sample data given by the client, because the client might be present in material masters, customers master, vendor masters, finance, GL, all those things. But he will give you a sample data of like 1,000 records or so from his material master table and ask you to do migrate that data. So you'll be doing all the scenarios, you'll be creating a sample project, and you'll be explaining him what we will be doing, and once if he is interested, then the actual sales POs will be generated. Okay, this is the purchase order where I mean, even before that we can go for a sign off, like the client agrees with our company saying that we will go ahead and get this project done. Okay, that is called a deal sign off. So this deal is done between the client and the company saying that we will do the data migration and you will provide us all the resources. So now after that, the functional consultants, the technical consultants, and the architects, these guys will interact with the client to create the architecture of the project, and what they will do is they will try to identify how many systems are required, how many servers are required, how many different modes like the development environment, the quality environment, the mock environments, the production environment, the volume of the data, how many modules are there, how many developers are required for this. So these architects, managers, or teammates, these guys will interact with the client at this stage, and these people will try to identify the number of modules, the volume of data, okay, and dependencies. What are the modules that are dependent on each other? What are the independent modules? So they will try to list out the entire nature of the client, and they will also design a business blueprint saying that these many systems are required, these many people are required for this project, and these are the different phases of the project. Like in development phase, we might need 20 people. In the testing phase, we might need only 5 people. In the mock environments, we might need 4 people, or in the support environment. So let us broadly divide them into 2 environments. One is the development and second one is the support. Support, they just execute the jobs in different environments to ensure that the data is loaded properly. So these guys make sure that this is the structure. So the architects gives you structure saying that okay, these many boxes are required: development, quality, mock, and go live. So this mock can happen any number of times, like mock 1, mock 2, mock 3, and so on. So within the development environment, this guy will identify how many local users are required and how many central repositories are required. Suppose if there are 2 or 3 streams like finance stream, marketing stream, so users who all work on the finance stream just need an access to the finance central repository, and users who all work on the marketing stream just need an access to the marketing central repository. So again, he should take care of the deployments of this central repository, the data from this central repository to the other environments, from there to different mock environments. So all these things were taken care by the architecture. So he gives you a business blueprint or a design saying that these many machines are required, these many users are required, and this is what I am planning to do. So it gives you a complete architecture of the project. And once this is done, the next important thing that happens is workshops. So these workshops are what you can say is the beginning part of the project actuals. So this is when the actual project gets kicked off. So in these workshops, the functional consultants, okay, and leads or managers, okay, or the architects, So any guys who are those are in the higher level, they will participate in the workshops, and in these workshops they will try to identify what is the data volume. Once again, they will try to identify what is the data volume, how many modules are there, how many independent modules are there, and how many dependent modules are there. And they will try to list down the entire business blueprint for this project. So they will list out the number of modules, out of which how many are dependent, how many are independent, what are the prerequisites, like what is, if suppose you are trying to load a material information, they will see what are the prerequisites that are to be present on the target system for this material to be loaded. For example, let us take the material type. So the material type lookup information should be present on the target table, because the material type should be loaded first, then you can load the material number, because you have to validate your material number against the material type, saying that this is a valid material type. If by mistake somebody enters ABCD or their name in place of material type, so it cannot it cannot be a valid material number. So they'll try to identify the lookup information, the cross-reference information, all these things which has to be loaded into the target system. Then what are the different modules, what are the independent modules, what are the dependent modules, and how many central repositories are required. Can these modules be grouped into different streams like finance, marketing, supply? So they will broadly categorize all these things into different segments, and then they will create a business blueprint saying that this is how the project will go. So in the first box, these are the modules that will be present, and once this is completed, then it goes to the next box where the remaining modules will be present. So they give you a complete independent, dependent, and the prerequisite jobs list or the modules list that has to be done. And once it is done, then again you'll have workshops. The workshops will keep happening. Okay, so the next workshop, what these functional consultants will do is they will write the functional spec. Okay, these functional consultants, per module they will write a functional spec. Okay, so for each and every module that they are going to load, or each and every segment of data, or each and every functional segment, what you can call as a functional segment of data that they are going to load, or each and every individual segment of data that they are going to load into the target system, these guys will write a functional spec. Functional spec is nothing but a story which talks about the module, what is this module all about, and why they are planning to migrate this data, and what are the prerequisites that has to be loaded, and how functionally it suits your data migration. So it will, if for example, if it is customer material info record, CIMR, it is also called as MND05. So what they will say is, okay, this customer material info record, the functional spec says that, okay, this customer material info record is a submodule of material master, and this can be loaded only once the material master is loaded. They give some assumption saying that we assume that all these things are done before we start up with this customer material info record. And they also say that so this is the sample data that is present on this target system or the source system, and then they will say why they need customer material info record module present in their project. They will give a description like how this functionally works and what does this. Then they will say with what are the modules that they are interact with, from where they will get the data, and how this data is combined or converged into different segments and be allowed to flow into the target system. So they give you an entire story. Then they will give you the target table structure name using which you have to load the data into the target system. So they give, if it is a small module, they'll give you a target table structure. So saying that this is a table structure in which we want you to generate the data and load it into the target system. So they'll tell you all these things and they will conclude this saying that this is how this functionally this module will work. And after that, in some projects the PLs will create the technical spec. or in some projects where the developers are asked to write the technical spec. So what these technical specs will have is the pseudocode. So based on the functional understanding, what these team leads or the developers will do is they will sit with the functional consultant and try to understand each and every page of his functional spec, and they will sit down with him and try to put that in a coding method, because we developers can understand only the code. So this should be present in a pseudocode, saying that these are the tables that are present, these are the tables that we need to join, because when you look from the developer's perspective, we do not need a story, or we do not, I mean, it is just like, it is always good if you know how functionally these modules will work. But from a developer's perspective, it is really a boring stuff. So we are not really interested, or we do not do anything with the story behind that particular module. What we will be doing is we will try to understand the basic requirements, like what are the tables, how many tables are there, what are the cross-reference tables, what are the lookup tables, and what are the joining conditions, and what is the target table structure, and what are the business rules. So this is what a developer will be looking at, and this will be a developer's perspective. But sorry, but on a functional consultant's perspective, it is quite important to let you know about the functionality of that module, because once you understand the functionality of that module, then only you can do a migration. So that is how they will think. So they usually understand why we are doing it, and this functional spec will say why we have to do a migration, and this technical spec will have a pseudocode for that why. It means how we are going to do. So this technical spec is like more like a pseudocode which has the source table names, the proper table name should be present, and then it should have the proper joining conditions, the estimated expected records when you join these 2 tables or 3 tables, and from how many source tables you have to extract the data, how many lookup tables, all these things will be present in the technical spec. Along with that, this functional consultant will also create a mapping sheet saying that these are the source tables and these many columns will be extracting from the source tables, and we will be loading these source tables into the target structure, and this is how you have to map your source structure to the target structure. So mapping sheet will be a kind of an Excel sheet, of which on the left hand side, one second, just give me a second. Okay, so mapping sheet is something like this, which I'll show you now. Okay, so this is a mapping sheet for open purchase orders. So now, if you look at this, on the left hand side, we'll have the legacy source table structures, and on the right hand side, we'll have the target table structure. Okay, this will be the target table structure. So these mapping sheets say that this is your source name, but this is your target name, and you have to map your source field with the target field, and you have to apply these business rules. So we'll go into that a little later, but now let us look at the story how it goes. So when these guys write the technical specs, now the actual role of the developer. So the developer role can be from here, or it can be from the next stage. So all these things happen only in the workshop. So remember, workshops are the most important parts of the project. So once these technical specs are created, the developers will sit with the person who wrote the technical spec and with functional consultant per module. They will try to understand what he has written and why he has written, and how does this technical spec will be in sync with the functional specs. So again, it is the project perspective. Some projects they'll ask the developers to do the technical spec as well, because they want to make sure that the developers should know or should foresee what they are trying to do in their job. Okay, it is always good you foresee what you are trying to do, and then you put it in the document, and then you start working as per the document. So now what you will do is you will create a technical spec based on the functional spec, and you will send it for a review with the functional consultant, saying that this is how I understood what you have written in the functional spec. So this guy, what he will do is he will try to analyze what we have written, and he will try to do some corrections if they are required, and if not, he will ask us to directly go ahead and start the development. So he will approve your technical spec. So now in the technical spec, we will write how many jobs are we going to create for this module, and what is the purpose of each and every job, how many validations are we going to do, and all these things we will create, and we will tell him that this is what we'll be doing on the technical spec. So some projects the developers will do, or in some projects, once the team leads or the functional heads, once they develop the technical specs, developers will go and interact with the functional consultant and the person who wrote or who approved the technical specs, saying that can you please explain this first section, can you please explain the second section, can you please explain the third section, and he will ask him to go through the entire functional spec and explain the technical spec and also each and every field of the mapping sheet. So it is the responsibility of the data owner or the functional consultant to explain each and every field of your functional spec or your mapping sheet and the reason why they are trying to do. So if somebody says it is a mandatory validation, then they have to tell them why is this a mandatory validation, what is the purpose, and if the source data is bad, what we are going to do. So all sorts of clarifications are to be done within these workshops, because once this workshop is done, you are going to freeze the functional spec and technical spec. So freezing means generally no changes are further allowed. So what they will do is symbolically they will convert the Word document into a PDF document, saying that this particular document is freeze and we are not going to allow any changes on this particular document unless and until it is a very important task and this is going to affect the business. So those things will be again taken into consideration as a separate CRs. So there will be a change request number. CR stands for change request, and these change request number will track what are the changes that we have done on an approved thing. So these once these workshops are done, your technical spec and functional spec along with your mapping sheet will be freeze. So they will not allow any more changes on these things, because the developer and the functional consultant agreed on some understanding, saying that this is how it should be, this is how you asked me, and this is how I am planning to do it. So if both of them are on the same page, then there is no need for any more changes. So even then, once the development is completed and the data is loaded into the target system, so looking at the nature of the data, the functional consultant still might feel that there are few changes that has to be done. So these changes, once the loading is done and analysis is done in different stages like development, quality, mocks, so they will do an analysis on the data and they will try to tell you what are the different changes that they need to be done on the project, and those things will be considered as a change request. Okay, they're not a part of your development. So we'll go to that a little later. So now, once this one is done, the development starts. Okay, start the development. The designer or the developers will go and start the development. So he has his input table. So what a developer should look at when he is going through this workshops. The developer should look at all the tables that are required for your job. So he should ensure that all the flat files or all the tables that are required for his job are present in the system or present in the database or whatever it is that he should ensure that all the tables are present. None of them are missing. Then the second information he should look at is all the cross-reference tables or lookup tables are available or not. At least sometimes we developers has to create that sample tables like cross-reference tables and lookup tables. If not, those things will be created by the architects. So we have to ensure that these informations, the cross-reference tables. So I told you before we start working on the development, all the cross-reference and the lookup information has to be loaded into the environment. So these things we have to cross-check if whatever the lookup tables or cross-reference table required by our project or our job are present in this environment or not, if they are present with the data or not. So you have to check the tables, you have to check the data, and you have to ensure that whatever the business rule that is written in the mapping sheet is understood by you. Okay, so you have to, so here it says leave it blank, default it to A, default it to yes. In some complex business rules, they will write a statement that, apply a business rule saying that if this is 1000, it has to be converted to A, B, C, D, and if it is 2000, it has to be converted to X, Y, Z, and if it is other than 1000 and 2000, it has to be converted to a blank. So these kind of some simple business rules. So that will be the most complex business rules you will be seeing in data services. So those sort of rules also to be understood properly, because sometimes they might be looking at the data in one scenario where they have different three types like 1000, 2000 and 3000. But what if there is one more 1000, 4000? So when you develop the job and when you get the actual data and start developing the job on that, so there is one more category of data which is 4000, which will go unaddressed. So or which will be defaulted to blank. So you should not do that. So you should ask the functional consultant each and every rule that he has specified and why he has written that rule and what is the meaning of that rule. And you have to you should try to put it in the form of a pseudocode.
Hello. Sir. No. Okay. Okay. Hello. Hello. Venugopal. Jairam. Hello.
Hello. ప్రకాష్ గారు
యా ఎస్ అదే జస్ట్ 2 minutes ఆగండి, జాయిన్ అవుతున్నారు. సో డిస్కనెక్ట్ అయిపోయింది నెట్ శామ్యుల్ దగ్గర.
యా షూర్ ఓకే ఓకే
జాయిన్ అవుతున్నారు. ఓకే
ఓకే ఓకే నో ప్రాబ్లం.
Alright guys, I'm back. Can you guys hear me and see my screen as well? Hello? Yeah. Alright, so sorry for that. That was an internet mishap. I just lost the connection. Even lost the flow, what I was telling. Alright, so sorry. Yeah, once the developer should understand what are the basic requirements. So the basic requirement for the developer is the tables, the list of tables that he needs to extract the data from, and then the business rules, what we need to apply, and the clarity on the business rules, the validations that he needs to perform on the data, and what are the different validations, and what are the lookup tables that are present, and what is the load structure that he needs to push the data into the target system. So these things the developer should understand. So there is a standard approach. So if you Google about the data migration standard approach, so just let me show that to you. Yeah. If you look at the approach and images, I had the PPT somewhere, but I could not find it. So I'm trying to open this here. So 1 second. Yeah. Phase 2, phase 2, phase 2, phase 2. Not this one. Just give me a second, I'll try to find out that actual one. Yeah, I know. Just give me a second. This is the one that I'm talking about, data migration overview. So this document will talk about the different approaches in which the data migration has to be done, and what are the different phases, general phases of a data migration. Right, so if you just go down, so it says like extract, map, validate, and load. So first you extract the data from the source, then you map it with the target structure, then perform the validations on the data or apply the business rules and load it into the target system. So these are the SAP best practices in terms of the data migration. So this is what we have seen in our presentation, and yeah, this is the document, or this is the page that I'm talking about. Now if you see, first we need to extract the data. So first we need to identify what are the different source tables, what is the data that is we are extracting, what are the filter criteria that we are applying in the data, because there might be 10,000s or millions of records, but we don't need all those records. We might need some set of information to be extracted. So we don't take the entire data and apply the business rules. We apply the filter on the data to ensure that whatever we require, so that is done in the extract data part, and then you map it with the target structure, because the functional consultant says this is the target structure in which you have to do the mapping. So now you map this data, your source structure, with the target structure, because the target structure will be having a different field names, different data types and their lengths, and the structure itself might be different. Some columns from the target table will be calculated within the designer job sorry, within the BODS job, and calculated values will be pushed into those columns. So this mapping has to be done as per the mapping sheet, what the mapping sheet says. And after that, you perform validations on the data. So we have seen there are 3 types of validations that we perform: mandatory, lookup, and format validations. So you perform 3 types of validations on data to ensure that only valid data goes into the next phase, that is loading data phase. So before loading data, you can apply the business rules in the enrichment phase. So that is the next version of this document. You get one more phase called enrichment, where you apply the business rules and then you take it to the load data stage, where you load the data directly into the target system, or you load the data using LSMW tools. LSMW is an SAP web tool, and it is the full form of LSMW is Legacy System Migration Workbench. Okay, so that is one of the migration tool, which it is like a small program or a GUI based program which will read the data from the flat files and load it into the target system. So from our end, if you look at that LSMW perspective, we need to generate a flat file as an output. So either you will be directly loading the data into the target system using the database tables, or you will be generating a flat file if it is an LSMW or an SAP RMS system as the target systems, then you will be generating a flat file as required by or as prescribed by the functional consultant, the table structure, and then you will be giving that flat file to these programmers who will read the data from the flat file and load it into the target system. The third way is you load the data into the SAP system using IDOC. IDOC is a nested structure. Suppose you want to move the entire information of a material, like the basic material, the plant view, the storage location, the warehouse location, the unit of measures, the currency conversions, types, and all these things. The entire junk material to be loaded into the target system at one shot, you use the IDOCs. So IDOC is a nested segment where the first segment is the header segment, which will have the basic material type, basic material information, and the sub-segments, the nested segments, will have the information like material plant, storage location, warehouse. It shows you a hierarchy in which it has to be loaded. So it always works on the header and line item structure. So first the header record goes and sits into the target system, and all the relevant line items will get loaded into the target system. So we'll look at that also, but now that is an approach. So either you directly load it into the database, or you generate a flat file and allow the programmers to load, or you directly load the data into the target system using an IDOC. And once the data is loaded, you get sample data from the source and from the target. Do a cross check, write data to support the business process. You do a reconciliation of the data to ensure the right data is posted into the target system. So this is how your different phases: extraction, then mapping, then validation, enrichment, loading. So these are the different stages, and you have to build your job as per those stages. Alright, so now a quick jump we are making about the development of the job. I'll get back to this document, but before that I just want to complete this, and then I'll get back to this document. So once you start the development and you complete your jobs will be loaded into a common central repository. Okay, and those jobs will be migrated from an environment to another environment and executed across the different environments. And if there is any changes in the data that is required, then they apply the change request and they ask the developer to again rework on that particular job, do this business logic change, or add one more extra column. This is required for the target table structure, and there is a change request which is called a CR at the stage. And once all these developments are done, so they will execute the jobs in different environments like testing, which we call it as DST, data string testing, and after that they will do a mock loads. Okay, so generally they will do mock 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3, and then finally they will do a go live on the target system. So if they see that the data is 100% good, then they will go for a go live on the target system. Alright, so so once they execute on the testing environment, if there are any defects in the data or if the job gets failed, then they will raise a ticket and assign it to the developer saying that this data is not proper, so we want it to be converted. And so the developer will again take his job, work on his job in the development environment, again upload it into the central repository where they will migrate the promote the code. That is called a code promotion. They will promote the code from the development environment to the testing or to the mock 1, 2, and 3 environments, and finally once they are ensured about it, they load it into the go live environment. And then the client will set a cutover date, that is called the project cutover. Okay, they will set a cutover date, and one second. What is the estimation time for generating the architecture to go live? So yeah, I'll come to that issue. Good question. Right, so once the project cutover date is set, so they will send an intimation to the end user saying that you will be working on new system from 31st December 2013, and from 31st on 1st Jan 2014 you will be entering the data into a new system where all your previous credentials will be killed and your new credentials will be provided for the new system. So that makes a clear sense that okay, these guys will be switching back to the new system where we will be loading the data into that new system, and they'll be working on the new system from that date. So that is called the project cutover date, and if some data is missing or if some data is not extracted from the source, or after you extracted, some transactions happen on the source systems, so these data is again extracted as a delta mechanism. The same jobs are utilized with some timestamps and ensure that the old data is not extracted and only the new data is extracted. So same jobs are utilized with the time mechanism and timestamp mechanism, and the delta approach is carried to load the data. And once the go live is done, everybody will clap their hands, bring booze, and celebrate a big party. That is how it goes in the client places. So there will be continuous go live happening for each and every object. So once our object is done, we and our team leads and functional consultants will just go and celebrate it, and next then it will be kind of a party environment, that is like some cricket match or some football match happening, and so many people are eagerly waiting for their team to succeed and win. So once finally the go live is done, then there will be a big party and celebrations. Okay, apart from that, this is how your project will go. So I told you we are doing a quick jump here in start development phase. Okay, now let us assume that there are 5 to 6 users working on this project, and all the 6 users have to develop the project based on the same guidelines. Okay, so these guys should start developing the project based on same guidelines, because if somebody is doing it in one way and the other person is doing it in another way, so definitely these both guys cannot complete the job in a fixed or desired timeline, and they cannot do a justice to the job. So what they will do is they will create a standard structures and the project timelines to ensure that this development activity should happen within this time frame. So 1st of Jan to 31st of Jan, the development should be completed. After that, the testing should happen. So all these different phases, like the way I told you, the architecture blueprint, then they will create a time zone saying that okay, this particular architecture business blueprint will take 3 months, and after that the workshops will happen for another 1 month, and after that they'll give a buffer of 15 days and another 15 days for system setup and all these things. And once it is done, the technical spec and the functional spec, they'll give a buffer of like 1 month to 2 months based on the number of people that are present in the project. And after that, the development, they will generally give a 1 month or 2 months gap. So the actual development will happen only within a month or two, and then after that the documentation will be there, then the CRs will be there, then the testing environment. So each and every phase of these projects will have different time frames. So generally for each and everything there will be 1 or 2 months. So if you look at this entire thing, so this project at max will be of 1 year. That is the maximum duration which you can continue a project for. So maximum that the project that I have worked on sorry, So the projects that I have worked on completed, some projects are there which got completed in 60 days. So 60 days is the SLA that we have given for the client, saying that we'll do all these things within 60 days and complete the work. So some projects are there which went for 1.5 years. So one project I worked in Canada, that is like, it went on for a year and a half, because I was, that is huge volume of data. I need to say that you are migrating the petrochemical industry's data from one system to another system, so that goes around 1.5 years. So based on the size of your project, based on the volume of your data that is present, your project duration tends to differ. So Rishabh, I think I answered your question in the right time. So your project duration depends on the volume of the data and the size of the project. Now, this development part needs a methodology, a standard approach, a best practice to be followed, so that all the developers design the code as per the same naming conventions or as per the same guidelines. And once all these developers' codes are uploaded into the central repository, it just gives you a look and feel that all these guys have done on the same system. So, or one developer did the entire job. So it should look that way. So that is the reason why we have this AIO methodology. AIO stands for all-in-one, and also there are different names for this, called SAP BPDM, Best Practices Data Migration. It is called as BPDM, or it is called as AIO methodology. So there are so many different names, or it is called as SAP BP, as SAP Best Practices. So all these things talk about the same thing. So this is a standard methodology to be followed by the entire team for a project, so that they will, everybody will be on the same page when they are doing their job. So this is broadly divided into 3 segments: extraction, lookup, and enrichment. So this is the source data extractions with filter criteria. This is lookup data extraction and lookup creation with the filter criteria. And the third one is enrichment, where this enrichment is broadly divided into different segments like map, deduplication, validation, enrichment, and loading the data into the target system. So one more thing, there will be generally 2 types of data that you will be getting in this project. One is the data that is coming from a flat file, because the client is not interested to show his entire data to you all the time. So generally he will be giving the data to you in the form of a flat file, or he will be pushing that into some database tables or FTPs, and he will provide you the data. The second thing is, like, you need to extract the data directly from the SAP system and link it with the different segments of IDOC and load it into the target system. So there are 2 approaches. One, you directly load it using the IDOCs, or second one is you generate a flat file or a database structure table, a flat table, using your BODS jobs. So keeping the first one in mind, so when you are working on a non-SAP system, when you are working on a flat structures or database tables, this methodology you need to follow. Okay, so the extraction is extracting the data from the source tables. So you need to ensure that the right tables are present, and you need to get all your tables into this particular enrichment conditional, and you have to do an extraction there. Then the lookup extraction, you have to create your lookup tables. In this method, you have to create your lookup tables. But in the next methodology that is related to SAP, the lookup tables will be automatically created. And then the enrichment, we will be performing different stages in the enrichment, like mapping, deduplication, source validation, target validation, then enrichment, deletion script, enrichment, and LSMW. So we'll look at them in detail now. So first, the naming convention is most important, because once we upload all these jobs into the central repository, all of them should look like one developer has done this. So the naming convention is the most important thing, and I am a good preacher about the naming conventions, and I preach a lot about the naming conventions to be followed across the projects, because in my company, once a project gets kicked off, I just create a document saying that these are the naming conventions you guys need to abide with when you are working on this project. So the project name should start with, this is a sample document which I have created to ensure that this is quite understood. So the project name should start with PRJ underscore the name. So the project name can be the client name here. Okay, so if it is like ABCD, it should be PRJ underscore ABCD. Then the job names. So job underscore the methodology that you are following, AIO underscore the client name ABCD underscore the module name material master underscore the object name, the submodule name as customer material info record or CMIR. And one more thing, you need to keep in mind that this project information or the job length of the project name or length of the job name should not, or length of the table name or length of the workflow name, whatever it is, it should not exceed 30 character length, because these things will be saved on the database tables. So the project names, the job names, the table names, everything will be saved on the database tables. And if it is SQL, it is okay, but when you are migrating the code from a SQL backend database to an Oracle backend database, your jobs will fail because the Oracle cannot take more than 30 character length. So keep in mind, you should not give a length which is more than 30 character length. And then once you give the table name, job names, then the global variable names. Global variables should start with $G underscore, the variable name like extract, $G underscore valid, or $G underscore enrichment, or $G underscore lookup. Then the source path and the target path. So you should not hard code the path within the jobs. You could generally we were doing it that way. We should go to that particular path and select the source flat files from the desktop, and we are taking that. You have to assign that path to the global variable, and you have to use this global variable in the place of this path, so that this code will be a flexible code which can be executed across the environment, just changing the path. If not, you have to change the entire code everywhere. You have to change the path from one environment to another environment. But in this case, if you just go to the script where you are assigning the path to this global variable and change in one place, that is more than enough. So that is one more important thing. Then the workflows name should be like this. The script initialization and script deletion script should be named like this. Then the conditionals. The conditionals name should start with CON underscore extract, CON underscore lookup, and CON underscore enrichment. So if you have more than one target table to be created, like your functional spec says that you have two, you have to generate two flat files, then you can have the condition underscore the table name underscore enrich, like table 1 underscore enrichment, and table condition underscore table 2 underscore enrichment. So you have to create two conditionals for this enrichment. And the data flow names, so I'll share this document with you, just keep it a little safe, because this is one of the document that I created for the company, so I don't want you guys to spread it, so just keep it in mind. So alright, so this staging names, so once you create the tables, so each, like once you do an extraction, you save the data in one table, so that you call it as extract underscore extract, the staging name of the table. So they should end with underscore extract, and when you are mapping it with the target structure, you do underscore MAP. So underscore MAP is the table which is mapped to the target structure. Underscore dedupe when you do a duplication. Underscore source are target validations when you do a validation on the data. Underscore enrichment is like the data flow name which you use underscore under the enrichment phase. So this is called the staging name. So you can either use underscore extract, map, dedupe, source or target validation or enrich in the data flow name. Similarly, the flat file name should start with ff underscore, so which mention that it is a flat file, and you have to mention it either it is a source flat file or a target flat file. If not, if you look at all these flat files in the data services designer, you might get confused, like, okay, so which one is the source and which one is the target. So you'll not have a clarity on that. So that is the reason why you have to mention if it is a source or a target flat file. And then the table names, again the table names are also the same as the data flow names. It has the staging place, so where you have to mention that either an extract, map or dedupe, valid, invalid or lookup. Okay, you have to mention all these things. Which table is that? So because if you mention that it is an extract table, so once you upload this job into the central repository, all your colleagues uploaded the jobs into the central repository, and you looking at all these extract tables, the architect or the team lead can understand, okay, all the jobs are present, all the tables are extracted. Okay, so you have to give a proper naming convention for these tables as well. So the lookups also should start with LKP underscore and the table name. For example, LKP underscore the material number. Then the cross-reference table. So lookup table is something like you look up your source value onto that table and you get the target value from the lookup table. And cross-reference table is something like you just cross-check for if your entry is a valid entry or not. So it is a cross-reference table. So you do not get any target value from this, and lookup table is you get the target value from this. Then the naming conventions of the transformation validation. So you have to ensure that validation underscore MANDT, validation underscore lookup, and validation underscore format is to be given. Then merge, when you are doing a merge, you have to use a merge valid and merge invalid. Then query transformation name should start with QT underscore the purpose of this particular query transformation. Okay, so you have to mention either it is an extraction or a filter or a mapping, and the most important thing is the data stores. Okay, so when 10 workers or 10 developers or 10 resources working on a project, all of them should have the same data store names, because once all these 10 guys upload into the central repository, so if 10 different guys did create 4 different data stores each, so then total number of 40 data stores will be uploaded, and you cannot see that those jobs in sync with each other. So that is the reason what generally happens is the architect creates all these data stores and upload them into the central repository and ask the users to download. Because why an architect will create that? Because the client sometimes is not willing to give the credentials of his database to the developers. So they will make the architect sign a non-disclosure agreement, and they will create a user read access for him from where he can read the data. And with those credentials, he will create a data store and he will upload that into the central repository. So the data stores names will be DS SAP if in case you are trying to load the data directly into the target SAP system. Then DS stage, this stage tables. Okay, so this is a wrong thing. So 1 second. Alright, so this DS stage is the data store name, DS underscore stage. This contains the entire lookup information. So what are the lookup tables you create? You have to create on these data store. So these lookup tables will be created at the backend separate database. Okay, all the intermediate tables will be saved in DS stage unit. All the tables like map, valid, invalid, enrich, or dupe, dedupe, all these tables will be created in this intermediate staging data store DS underscore stage underscore unit. And if you are extracting the data, sorry, if you are extracting the data from a source database, then you have to give name as DS underscore a client name. So ABCD, if client name is ABCD, then DS underscore ABCD will be your source data store name. Alright, so this is the flow, and first you have to create a project and job. Under the job you have to create a workflow. Then you have to create a script initialization because you are using the conditionals. So remember the job that we have done, conditional scripts and global variables. Alright, so we are just going to create the jobs, real-time project jobs the same way. So first you have to create a script initialization. Then once the script initialization is done, above that you have to create a global workflow. So forget about that, that is not a mandatory part. So script initialization, and after that you need a data flow for extracting the data. Then conditional for a lookup, So next one will be a conditional for lookup. Here we created it for Mara, but it will be lookup, and data flow for lookup extraction. So you need to extract the data from a flat file or the database table and convert the target table into a permanent table to do a lookup on top of that. And next one is conditional for enrichment, where you have multiple data flows. So first one is data flow for mapping, where you map the source structure with the target structure. Then the data flow for deduplication, where you apply a business rule to do a deduplication of the data. Then you ensure that there are no duplicates in this deduplication method. And then the data flow for source data validation, because why we need two types of validations like source and target validation. When you are extracting the data from the source tables, so some columns, when you map it to the target structure, some columns will be present from the source and some columns will be calculated and loaded into the target system, or some columns will be defaulted with some values in the target system. So there can be extra columns which are not a part of your source structure. So first we do a source validation to ensure that all the data that is coming from the source is good, and we use a deletion script to delete the bad data from the invalid data present in the invalid table. If it is present in the valid table, we use a script to delete that. Then we do a data flow for enrichment and data flow for target validation, because at enrichment you might populate some new columns with some calculated values, and you have to do a target validation to ensure that these new values are valid or not. Again, you do a script deletion and data for LSMW. So in this, you create the target structure and you perform a validation. So this document also has screenshots which I'll be sharing by end of the day, because I'm already late for office. So just go through this document one by one. So it just got the screenshots, and tomorrow I'll try to open some project and show it to you. Like this one, I'll try to import one job is there which I have created for a project purpose. So I'll try to import the job and I'll show it to you how it works and all this stuff. So the design, same way, I'll not create a job for you. I'll show existing project and how it is designed. It will just look like the same way it is present in this document. So once you go through this, and I'll also send one more document by end of the day. Please go through the document, and once you go through the document, we can look at the next methodology. So this is one project that we'll be looking at, and next one, the project that we'll be looking at is this one, the AIO methodology 3.2. So for that, you need to do a little homework. I'll be sending this document to you. So in this document, best practices for data migration, there are a few things like highlighted. Okay, just go through these things before we start the class. So once you go through these things, I think it would be easy for me to explain. So just go through this document, and once this is explained, I will share two more documents with you. Okay, so these 3.2 and 4.0. So these two documents, I'll share them with you, which will give you a clear understanding how the projects that you have to go through and read it. And if you have any questions, you can get back to me. So I'll share these documents by end of the day. Try to share them by end of the day because I'm already late. So what you'll do is, like, you will get a less time, but please go through those documents and get back to me tomorrow morning in our class. So we will try to, conclude this entire training with the help of the documents. Okay, so any questions or any suggestions, or if you have any clarifications required, you please email me at da.dataservices@gmail.com. I'll respond to you at the earliest. Okay guys, thanks for your time, and sorry for stretching it a little late today. I'll catch up tomorrow morning.